My name is Clara May Thompson. I am 78 years old, and I live, or rather I used to live in a quiet, fading town in rural Ohio where the cornfields stretch to the horizon and secrets are buried deeper than winter frost. This is not a story I ever thought I would tell. For most of my life I believed that silence was a form of strength, a dignified retreat, but silence also has teeth, and mine has chewed through enough of my years, so let me begin with the night. Everything changed with a silver spoon, a porcelain bowl, and a scent I will carry with me to my grave. It was a Thursday evening. The sky outside the polished dining room window was the color of old bruises, a mottled gray tinged with a sickly purple. I sat at the far end of a long, glossy dining table that wasn't mine, in a house that felt more like a museum than a home. The silverware was set too perfectly, the chairs were too stiff, and the silence was an oppressive humming weight in the air. My son Robert was still at the office, working late, as he so often did. It was only Brenda, his wife, and I in the house, and Lucky, their cocker spaniel, who somehow enjoyed more freedom and affection within these four walls than I did. Brenda placed a small porcelain bowl in front of me, the kind one might use for a delicate soup or a summer dessert. A thick brown gelatinous stew was steaming inside it, its surface bubbling slowly like mud in a hot spring. She didn't say what it was. She didn't have to. The aroma preceded it, a cloying, unnatural scent that didn't belong in any kitchen I had ever known. It was vaguely meaty, yet sweet and metallic at the same time, an olfactory contradiction. I lifted the heavy silver spoon, a piece from a set I knew she kept only for appearances, and brought it cautiously to my lips. I've eaten simple meals my whole life. I know the taste of budget meats, of canned beans stretched with water, of overcooked rice and day-old bread. I know the taste of struggle, of making do, of quiet hardship. But this was different. The texture was grainy, pasty on the tongue. I held the spoonful in my mouth for a single long moment, my taste buds recoiling before setting the spoon down gently on the pristine white napkin. Money. I whispered more to myself than to her the name of the dog food my late husband Harold used to buy for our old beagle mix decades ago. Brenda turned from the sink, a dish towel in her hand, and let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a laugh of mirth, it was a sound that cut a shard of glass in the quiet room. "You're sharp, aren't you, Mama Clara?" she said, her voice dipped in a venomous syrup. She had insisted on calling me Mama Clara from the day I moved, in a title that felt both cloying and dismissive, like I was a character in a play she resented being cast in. Its organic, high protein, no different really. Then came the line, the one that would etch itself into the inside of my skull like a carving on old stone, the justification that laid her cruelty bare. Mom lives off us, so eating the same as Lucky is just equal. I didn't say a word. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. My body went still, a survival instinct I hadn't needed in years. I simply looked down at the bowl again, at the viscous brown mush. Then my eyes drifted across the gleaming table where Lucky's bowl, a ceramic bone-shaped dish, was half full of the very same substance. He was licking his chop's tail, wagging, a happy, ignorant creature. Brenda never sat to eat with me on the nights Rob was late. She always claimed she'd already eaten, or that she was on some new kind of juice cleanse, or that she was simply too exhausted. I noticed, however, that she only cooked these special meals when he wasn't home. They were always hot, but utterly heartless, calculated to be just enough sustenance to keep me from complaining, yet never enough to make me feel nourished or cared for. I had moved in with them 3 months earlier after a fall on an icy patch of sidewalk left me with a cracked hip and a persistent tremor in my right hand. I needed help, or at least that's what my doctor had said with grave certainty. Rob had offered, insisted even, that I come stay with them just for a little while, Mom, until you're back on your feet, he'd said, his eyes filled with a genuine, if fleeting, concern. Melissa had smiled, a wide, white, perfect smile, and agreed. Of course, we'll make it work, she chirped. We're family. I should have known from that first smile, too practiced, too bright, that something inside her was hollowed out and rotten, but I said yes. Because I was scared and in pain I said yes, because I didn't want to be alone in my own quiet house any more, not since Harold had passed, leaving behind a silence that was even louder than the one in this dining room. That first night Brenda showed me to the guest room. It was barely big enough for the twin bed and the old oak dresser I'd brought from home. There were no curtains on the window, no pictures on the stark white walls, no warmth at all. It was a cell sanitized with the faint, sharp smell of bleach. She smiled that same wide smile as she ushered me in. It's not much she'd said, but it's better than a nursing home, right? A statement posed as a question, but it was really a reminder of my place, of my lack of options. I wanted to believe she meant well. I tried to believe it, even when she consistently forgot to pick up my heart medication from the pharmacy, even when I overheard her telling a friend on the phone that I was a little off and probably didn't remember much these days, even when she started locking the pantry and the refrigerator at night, claiming it was for a new intermittent fasting lifestyle she was trying, though the locks only seemed to be engaged after Rob went to sleep. But that dinner, that Thursday night, that was different. That wasn't neglect, it was a declaration. I sat there for another long minute staring at the bowl. I picked up the spoon again and stirred the stew slowly, watching how it clung to the silver like thick brown glue. I glanced over at Lucky. He wagged his tail, eager for more. Of course he was. It was made for him. Brenda leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone, basking in the glow of her own quiet cruelty. Eat up, Mama Clara, she said without looking up. It's good for you, all natural. I forced a smile, a brittle thing that felt like it might crack my face. And of course, dear. And I did eat one bite, then a second, just enough to keep her from noticing that the rest would be flushed away later, buried under tissues in the bathroom trash. I knew better than to fight her in her arena, under her rules. Without a plan, you don't wrestle with a pig, you both get dirty, and the pig likes it. After dinner I excused myself and went to my room. I closed the door and sat on the edge of the thin mattress, my hand shaking again, but not from age this time. It was shaking with a cold, clear rage, a feeling I hadn't felt since I was a young woman who had to fight for every scrap of respect. That night I didn't sleep. I listened to the rhythmic click of her phone as she texted in the kitchen, the soft thump of Lucky's paws on the hardwood floors, the low mocking hum of the refrigerator still locked. And when the house was finally still, long after midnight, I tiptoed out in my worn socks, clutching my phone with both hands like a weapon. In the kitchen trash bin, under a layer of paper towels and coffee grounds, I found what I was looking for, a torn open cardboard case, the kind that holds bulk orders. The branding was offensively cheerful. Doggies Gourmet Din Din underneath. I found the empty cans. The labels had been meticulously peeled off, all but one. On that last can a barcode was still visible, along with a name I didn't recognize. I didn't take the can. I took a photo, clear, focused, undeniable. I went back to my room, my heart beating a slow, steady drum. And I did not cry, not that night. That night I began to build my case. The next morning I began my performance. I became the woman Brenda wanted me to be, frail, forgetful, and utterly benign. I forgot my cane in the living room, forcing her to fetch it with a dramatic put-upon sigh. I misplaced my reading glasses and blamed Lucky, patting his head with a confused smile. I repeated myself in casual conversation. Did you say it was going to rain on Thursday or Tuesday, dear? I'd asked, tilting my head. My mind is a bit fuzzy lately. Brenda devoured it. Her smugness grew like mold in a dark, damp corner. She's getting worse. I overheard her whisper to Rob one night when she thought I was asleep. She called the remote control the telephone again. I don't know how long we can keep this up, honey. It's a lot. Her condescension was my camouflage. I took it as permission to forget, to mumble, to move slowly through the house like a ghost. All the while my eyes were sharp and my ears were even sharper. I started keeping a journal again, not in a physical notebook, that was too risky. I used the Notes app on my phone, password protected, disguised under the title Knitting Patterns. There I documented everything with the precision of a Bookkeeper Tuesday 8:12 p.m. served leftovers from Lucky's bowl poured directly into mine. Brenda watched me eat the first bite before turning away. Wednesday 10 a.m. Brenda told Rob I was getting paranoid because I asked where the fresh bread was. She'd hidden it in the garage freezer. Thursday 6:47 p.m. found another order confirmation email open on her tablet. https my www. Google.com search QWA Pet Supply Deluxe.com. Recurring monthly order took photo. Each entry felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. This wasn't about revenge, not yet. This was about proof, because women like me, old women, we don't get believed. When we speak we get called senile, dramatic, bitter, but no one argues with a time-stamped photograph that week. I used my own secret bank account, an account Brenda knew nothing about, to order a second simple smartphone. I had it delivered to the corner pharmacy under the name of an old friend. I picked it up on a Tuesday afternoon when Brenda was out getting a facial, an activity she deemed essential for her self-care. It was time to tell someone, and I knew exactly who. That night I waited until the house was dark and silent. Then I opened my hidden phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. After 3 rings, a young male voice answered, sharp and clear despite the late hour. "Hello, Leo," the first said softly. "It's Grandma Clara." There was a pause, and then the immediate shift from sleepy confusion to alert concern. "Grandma, is everything okay? Why are you calling from this number?" I took a breath, my hand steady on the phone. "No, sweetheart," I whispered, the words finally finding their way out. "Not exactly. Your aunt is feeding me dog food, Leo, and she thinks I'm too old and too stupid to notice." By the time I ended the call with Leo, my heart was still thudding, not with fear, but with a resolute focus. He had always been the perceptive one, the grandchild who watched more than he spoke, the one who saw the flicker of annoyance in Brenda's eyes when everyone else saw a dutiful smile. Now he was a second-year law student at Indiana University, and he was my last best hope. "I'm coming this weekend, Grandma," he'd said, his voice low and tight with a controlled fury. "Don't tell anyone I called. Don't do anything different. Just act the part. I'll handle the rest." I waited, but I didn't sit idle. Using the library computer during my walks, I became a quiet detective. I uploaded the photo of the barcode and entered it into a product lookup site. The result was instantaneous. Doggy's Gourmet Din Din Chicken Pea Stew Bulk Pack, 24 cans, and underneath the promotional copy in small bold letters, "Not for human consumption, intended for canine use only." It listed the ingredients: meat, byproducts, bone meal, artificial flavorings, and a host of chemical preservatives. The clinical, blunt reality of it hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just neglect, this was poisoning, slow and deliberate. I dug deeper. I found the supplier's website. http was say www.google.com/ search Q Pet Supply Deluxe. Come just as I suspected. Brenda hadn't logged out of her account on the family tablet. Her order history was a damning indictment. A recurring monthly subscription for the gourmet dog food. The cost was staggering. She was spending more money to feed me animal-grade mush than it would have cost to make a simple pot of real human stew. That was the detail that stopped my breath. This wasn't about saving money. It wasn't about convenience. This was about power. It was an act of intentional degradation. I gathered my evidence with the patience of a spider weaving a web. I took a sample of the food to my old friend Marcy, a retired nurse who worked part-time at the pharmacy. She confirmed it, her face a mask of horror. "Clara, this isn't just wrong," she'd said, her hand on my arm. "This is illegal. This is elder abuse." She agreed to write a signed, notarized statement. When Leo arrived that Saturday, he didn't come to the house. We met at a small coffee shop in the next town over. He was taller than I remembered, his jaw set with a new adult determination. I handed him the manila folder neatly labeled family photos. He opened it and went through each document in silence, his expression growing colder and harder with every page. The invoices, the screenshots of Brenda's social media posts about caregiver burnout, the photo of the barcode, Marcy's notarized letter. He closed the folder and looked at me, his eyes full of a righteous fire. "Okay, Grandma," he said, "here's what we're going to do. We Don't go to the police yet. We don't want a messy public fight that she can spin. We want a confession. We want leverage. We are going to host a family intervention, but they won't know they're the ones being intervened upon. He grinned, a flash of the clever boy. I remembered we need an occasion. When's Uncle Rob's birthday? The birthday party was Melissa's masterpiece of suburban performance, streamers in silver and navy, a cake so polished it looked plastic, every chair perfectly arranged. The guest list was tight but significant. Rob's siblings, their spouses, a few cousins, and two of Rob's senior partners from his accounting firm. Enough people to witness a celebration or a complete and total detonation. I was seated in my usual spot, the corner chair by the patio doors. An afterthought, Melissa floated around the room in a cream-colored silk blouse, laughing too loudly, refilling wine glasses. The perfect hostess. Rob stood beside her, looking stiff and distracted, a man already sensing the ground shifting beneath his feet. Then, just after the cake had been cut, Leo stood up. He didn't carry a briefcase, just a slim leather folder and a small portable projector. If I could have everyone's attention for just a few minutes, he said, his voice calm and commanding. I've put together a little family tribute for Uncle Rob's birthday. A few people chuckled. Melissa beamed, thinking it was a loving surprise. Leo plugged the projector into the wall and the room dimmed. The first image flashed onto the pale gray wall, a bright, cheerful logo for https www.google.com/searchq. While Pet Supply Deluxe com, a confused silence fell. The next slide, an order confirmation for Doggy's Gourmet Din Din. A few forks clinked against plates. The air grew thick. Next, a close-up of the ingredients list with the words "not for human consumption" highlighted in a menacing red. Then a photo of me sitting at that very dining table, a bowl of the brown mush in front of me with Lucky's identical bowl in the background. The room was utterly still now, the silence a living entity. For the past 3 months, Leo began, his voice devoid of emotion, a prosecutor laying out his case. My grandmother, Clara May Thompson, has been knowingly and repeatedly served pet food by her daughter-in-law, Brenda Harris. He said her name slowly, deliberately, letting it hang in the air like a verdict. Brenda shot to her feet, her face flushing a blotchy crimson. This is disgusting. This is a lie. She's confused. Leo didn't even look at her. He advanced to the next slide. A spreadsheet. Here are the credit card statements. Over $2,000 spent on these gourmet meals. Meanwhile, grocery receipts show barely enough food purchased for 2 adults, because you see the refrigerator was often locked at night. A collective gasp went through the room. Rob's sister covered her mouth with her hand. One of his business partners stared at the screen, then at Rob, his expression one of pure disbelief. She's an old woman," Brenda shrieked. "She forgets things. She's making it up." Leo turned to me. "Grandma, has any doctor ever diagnosed you with dementia or significant memory loss?" I stood up slowly, my back straight. "No, sweetheart. Do you handle your own finances?" "Yes, I do. Do you remember what you had for dinner 2 nights ago?" I smiled faintly. "I had a microwaved frozen chicken patty and some canned corn, and I had 1 bite of the stew from that bowl before I flushed the rest down the toilet, just like I did the night before that. And the night before that." A silence heavier than cement settled over the room. Leo advanced to the final slide. It was not a photo, it was a scanned copy of a property deed, the title clear and undeniable, owner Clara May Thompson, current and sole title holder of the property at 124 Willow Creek Drive, the house they were all standing in. I stepped forward, my voice quiet, but ringing with a clarity that cut through every lie. "I was going to wait until next month to handle this," I said, looking directly at my son, then at his wife, "but now feels like the right time." I reached into my apron pocket and pulled out a single old-fashioned brass key. I placed it gently on the coffee table. "I'm moving out tomorrow," I announced to the stunned room, "and this house is going up for sale next week." Brenda's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Rob finally found his voice, a strangled whisper, "Mom, you're kicking us out." I looked at my son, the boy I had raised, the man I no longer recognized. "No, Robert," the first corrected him gently, "I am letting you go because I deserve to spend my remaining years with dignity. I deserve peace, not pity, and I certainly do not deserve poison. Leo turned off the projector, the light faded, but the truth remained stark and indelible in the suffocating darkness of that room. No one applauded, no one cheered, they just sat in the wreckage, forced to finally look at the ugliness they had permitted through their own silence and willful ignorance, and for the first time in a very long time I felt truly, completely, blessedly full.
Ari, a grown man, across every bridge he chooses to burn there comes a time when you must set your child down and let them walk on their own, no matter how many times they stumble. My love for him was a story I wrote and rewrote for 40 years, but he chose to tear out the pages. His betrayal was a cruel gift. It forced me to remember the protagonist of my own life, the woman who raised a boy with a heart full of hope, the librarian who believed in the power of truth. This story isn't just mine, it belongs to every person made to feel like a ghost in their own home, their presence tolerated only as long as it is useful. We are not footnotes, we are the authors, we are the foundation, and when we leave the whole house falls.